Hello, welcome once again to my kitchen here at Trails Inn 62. Well, today I'm going to dehydrate pasta. Well, it was either that or go out and split firewood, and I talked myself out of that. So now we're going to dehydrate some pasta today. First of all, I've got my pot of water on boiling. You make your pasta, you cook your pasta just like you do regular pasta. Now different recipes and everything for dehydrating pasta. Some don't say anything about it, and some say you need to process it al dente, 1 or 2 minutes, just shy of being totally cooked, because when you reconstitute it, then it will finish cooking because you're putting it in boiling water. And like rice, you reconstitute it on a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 part pasta, 1 part water, cup of pasta, cup of water. Okay, now so we're gonna cook our pasta till just before it's done. Now some of the recipes, they don't say whether you stop before it's done. They just say cook your pasta like it says on the instruction. The only caveat is do not put any oil in your water. I usually put oil in my water when I make pasta. That helps keep it from sticking together, clumping up. But don't put oil in your water, because the oil will get on the pasta and then it will make it, on the dehydrating, it'll spoil it. So you don't want any oil on your water, on your pasta. So I'm bringing my water to a boil, and then I'm going to put penne pasta. You get the big jar here. Penne pasta. There we go. And I'm going to cook that. And the reason is because I got a lot of it. Now I do have in my food storage, I do have a couple of 5-gallon buckets of dried pasta. If this works, like I believe that it will, then probably what I'll do is I'll start going into my store of dried pasta in a 5-gallon bucket, and I'll start dehydrating that and storing that in the in my bucket. But that's a different thing. So, but anyway, I'm going to dehydrate that. I got some macaroni I may dehydrate later, but first I'm going to do this pasta, this penne pasta, and we're going to bring our water to a boil. Not there yet. So we're going to bring our water to the boil, then we're going to put our pasta in the water and cook it just like you normally would dry pasta. And here we go. Now, as you know, it takes a good deal of water when you're making pasta. Anybody that makes pasta knows you have more water than you have pasta. So here I've got my water boiling, and I'm going to simply take my pasta and add it to it. And when you reconstitute dehydrated pasta, again, it's only a 1-to-1 ratio. It's good for adding to things that you've already got, or you've got some sauce or Alfredo sauce or something like that, and you just want a quick small deal of pasta. You can just make a quick small deal of pasta. The other thing is, if you're going on a trail or camping or something like that, it's great for taking, in that case, in that instance, because it's lightweight, quick and easy, and you don't waste water, because you only need as much water as you got pasta. Alright, so we put our pasta in there. We'll stir it up a little bit. And we're going to let it cook. This is pretty good sized pasta. So I'm going to cook this till it's just almost done, or right at done. Now one thing I do is I constantly stir it. Not constantly. I stir it occasionally to keep it from clumping up. Alright, this is just about done, because I didn't put any oil in it. Usually I put oil in it to help stop it from clumping. And plus there's so much in here, I just like to stir it. So I got a heavier spoon to do that with. So this is it's just right at done. So the next thing we're going to do is to drain the pasta. I'm going to drain the pasta here. Once I drain it, then I'm going to put cold water on it. Now you can use just a faucet cold, but I had this in the refrigerator. And the purpose of the cold water is to stop the cooking process. I'm going to drain it, cool it down. So if you have a salad spinner, you can put this in a salad spinner and spin it, get the excess water off of it. But I don't have one, so I'm going to just leave it in this strainer. I'm going to let it drain a little bit, stir it up, let it drain out before I put it in the dehydrator. Alright, once my pasta has drained, I've stirred it gently in the drainer. Now I'm going to put it on my dehydrator trays. And these trays, this pasta is big enough where I don't have to put any mats or anything on it. I'm just going to put it on the trays. Spread it out. When I do the smaller pasta, of course, I'll put mats on here and use mats. And I just kind of put it on here and kind of spread it out. And as it dries, I will go through and check it, make sure it's not sticking together anywhere. I do have a little cookie cutter that I put in this one because there's no middle rise to it, so that kind of keeps it from going down the bottom. I forgot to do that on my first layer, so this will kind of keep it from going down. I don't mind if they're touching a little bit, but I will go through as it's dehydrating and make sure those separate out on down the dehydration process. So as long as they're laying flat and they're not on top of each other, that's all I'm concerned about at this time. Now I've got my second dehydrator because it looked like this is going to make more than just 8 trays. And these are Nesco. This one is American Harvest, which is now Nesco. This is an older one that I have. I like this one because, first of all, it has the centerpiece here where nothing can go down. Secondly, that it has adjustable temperature. My other Nesco has got just one temperature, 135 degrees. But I'm going to be doing this at 135 degrees, so that's all right. But I'm going to do 2 of them because it's going to take more than 8, and the recommendation for these is 8 trays maximum. So since it's an 8 tray maximum, and I'm going to have to use my second dehydrator here anyway, I decided to go ahead and just do 6 on the first one, and then I'll do however many this one takes. Alright, this one looks like it's going to do 3 trays. Like I said, if I had known it was going to be more than 8 trays, I would have just went ahead and divided them up. So that's going to give me 9 trays total. And what I'll probably do is keep an eye on this one because there's fewer trays, it will probably get done faster. But we'll keep an eye on it and see what it does. Alright, here we are. I got them going. This is my American Harvester. This is my older one, Snack Master Dehydrator. It's actually, I think Nesco owns this now. And I've got 3 trays on this. I set it at 130 or thereabouts. I don't know if you can see that in there or not, but I set it at 130 because it'll probably process faster, and so maybe I'll get them more close to the same time. This particular one here, Nesco and American Harvest, you can see there. This one is preset. It only has one temperature. It's 135 degrees. This one, of course, dehydrates. It blows from the top. The other one, it blows from the bottom. So I've got 2 different styles here, but I like these Nescos. They do me a good job. They've worked great over the years. And as long as they keep working, I'll keep using them. Okay, so it's been about 4 hours. And as I suspected, the short stack here is done. I went through about halfway, made sure none of them were sticking together, and they're good and hard. So they're done, they're dried, dehydrated. I'll let these cool, and then I'll put them in a Ziploc bag and condition them. And what that is you keep them out where you can see them in an airtight container to make sure there's no moisture left in them. So you want to make sure that they're cool, because if they're not cool, then the heat will heat the air and that will generate moisture. So you make sure that they're cool before you put them in your airtight container. The other one, not quite done yet, but it's getting there. So I rotated the trays. See, now this one is stuck together here. Separate those so there's still a little moisture in there. So I'll go through and make sure these are all separated, and it'll go for a little longer. Okay, the pasta's done. The 3 tray stack did about 3.5 hours for it to be completed. The 6 tray stack took about almost 6 hours. So it's done, and I'm going to let it cool, and I'll put it in a container and we'll let it condition. Now, the Pena is done, and I have put it in sealed containers, and I'm doing what's called conditioning. I may have mentioned this before, but when you condition dehydrated stuff, basically all you're doing is you're putting it in a sealed container, leaving it out where you can check on it every day for about a week. Some people do shorter, some people do longer, but you need to look through it. I like to get it where I can look through it all. I can rotate it around and see all the different parts of it to make sure that there is no moisture left in there. By doing this, you'll be able to see. So if there's moisture left in there, then you know that you didn't get your dehydrating done properly. Alright, next I'm going to be doing some macaroni. I've got this macaroni here that I'm going to dehydrate this. Probably a better option for taking on a hike or camping or something like that, because being smaller, it should reconstitute faster. That's one thing I found about the Pena being a bigger pasta. It takes a little bit longer to reconstitute, and probably it might not have hurt if I'd cooked it just a little bit longer, because it is bigger, takes longer. I did have some last night. I had some spaghetti sauce I had froze, was left over. I heated that up. Then I rehydrated the Pena. It did take a little longer than what I'd hoped, but I only have the Pena because apparently several years ago, and I've had it for several years, it was on sale at a real good price, and I got it somewhere on sale. But I had it, and I've had it for several years, and that's why I decided to use it. But I did reconstitute it, and I did pop it in the microwave for about 4 or 5 minutes, and so it would be faster that way. So it turned out pretty good. and I don't have to worry about you know, pouring off a lot of water, wasting a lot of water, because it is a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, like I said, the bigger the pasta, the longer and more intense it is in the rehydrating of it. So we're going to try the macaroni, and lest you think that I'm more ambitious than I am, this is the next day. This is not the same day. So I'm going to be doing some macaroni today. Elbow macaroni, I think is what they call it. Anyway, it's macaroni to me. And then I'll probably do some spaghetti. I've got several packages of spaghetti. I'm going to try doing some spaghetti and doing it that way. So, macaroni. First thing I'm going to do is, like I did the pena, I'm going to put it in a pot of water, boil it, and cook it till, I'm going to cook this till it's just done. Not too long. And again, pour the cold water on top of it to stop the cooking process, because I want to get it to the point where it's done, but I don't want to overdo it, because when it reconstitutes, it'll cook a little bit. I don't want to get mushy. But on the other hand, I want to make sure that it's done, so it'll be easier to reconstitute. So I'll cook it till it's done. I'll pour a little cold water on it. That'll stop the cooking process, and then I'll put it on my dehydrator. We'll be back when I get to there. Now, I've cooked the macaroni until just done. It's just done. Perfect, if I do say so myself. Put it in the strainer. Poured my cold water on it from the refrigerator. Cooled it down, and then sprayed it with the sink a little bit. Stirred it up as I did it, so that it's cooled down, so that it quit cooking. I don't want it to cook any more than what it is. Now I'll let it drain here for a bit, and I'll kind of stir it up. Get the water draining out through it. Let it drain here a bit. And then after it drains for a bit, then I'll put it on the dehydrators and start the dehydrating process. Now, as I put the macaroni on the dehydrators, this time I'm going to have to use my mat, because this is a smaller macaroni. Don't want it falling through. Now, I use these mats. They're see-through. Can you see through it? Alright, so they allow the air to flow for better circulation. Now, you notice the little cutoff there. You can buy these kind of mats for these dehydrators, for your Nesco dehydrators. I had one that came with one of mine, and so I just bought some of this. There it is. Bought some of this, which is a plastic canvas from the hobby department at your major store, or whatever store you want to get, hobby store you want to get. It's just a canvas mat. Wasn't quite big enough, so I traced it, cut the partial circle out of it, and then I had to cut little pieces like this to fill in the gap. You can see here, my mat goes on, and I just lay this down in place. Now, I did have to cut the circle out in the middle, and I just traced the original one, or traced around the circle. I don't remember. No, my original one came with my other dehydrator. So I just simply traced this circle around on one of the trays and cut the centers out. So I made one for each tray. I have my little cookie cutter deal that I place in there. And that'll keep stuff from falling down the middle. I'm not quite sure how many this will make, but we'll just see. Spread this out. Just kind of want it in a single layer, as much as I can. Now, I will go through this. As this dehydrates, it will get smaller. So I will go through it as it's dehydrating and make sure that there's no clumps sticking together. Now it looks like this is going to make 4 trays in each one. So I'm getting 4 trays done here. Now one thing about cooked pasta, as it cools and dries a little bit, it does get a little sticky. So in order to spread this out where it's not sticking to my hand and everything, I've got a little bowl of water here that I just kind of dip my fingers in when I need to. If it starts sticking there on it, I just kind of dip my fingers in there and just kind of moisten my hand a little bit, and that makes it keep from sticking. And yes, we want this as dry as possible before we dehydrate because it'll take less time to do. But on the other hand, if it takes a little more time, it takes a little bit more time. But it's easier to do this when you got a little moisture on your hand to keep it from sticking. Alright, so we're going to have 4 in each dehydrator. And we'll get them started and put them on 135 degrees on both of them. Since they're the same size and everything, we'll do them for 135 degrees. We'll see how they do. Okay, we finished our macaroni here. It took about 5.5 hours. And I checked it consistently throughout, about every hour or so, and made sure they were broken apart and rotated the trays. And so now I've let it cool, put it in here, and I'm going to transfer it here to my container and let it condition. And that's it for the macaroni pasta. Back again. Alright, now we're ready for our third type of pasta. We've done the pena pasta, we've done the elbow macaroni, and now we're going to do spaghetti. Spaghetti's a little bit different because, well, you can't lay it out individual strands. So I'll show you how we do that next when we get to it. But right now I've got my water on boiling. Got 3 pounds of spaghetti here that I'm going to use. I'm keeping some I'm not dehydrating because I do have a recipe that I have to have raw spaghetti in order for it to work because it's baked. But anyway, going to do 3 pounds of it and dehydrate it, and we'll see how that goes. And when we're all through with the dehydrating of the 3 pastas, then I'm going to reconstitute them, and we'll see how they do in the reconstitution, how they come out, what all has to be done. Now I'm going to cook the spaghetti like I did the elbow macaroni till it's just barely done. Now I did the pena pasta so it was just a tad bit al dente. Not a lot, just a little bit. I probably should have went ahead and cooked it all the way because it's such a big noodle and everything that when I tried reconstituting it already, it seemed like it took longer than it ought to, took more than it should have taken. But anyway, we'll do it again and show you what we did and how we did it and how to reconstitute it, the elbow macaroni and the spaghetti. The elbow macaroni is probably the best one if you're planning on camping or hiking and taking it on that, because it's smaller and it's more compact and it'd be easier to transport. So, going to get the spaghetti done. I've got the water on. I'll get it cooked, and then we'll get it in the dehydrator, and I'll be back to show you how we put it in the dehydrator. Alright, my spaghetti's done, and I began putting it on. I'm using what's called the drop method. You can nest them and that sort of thing. I've seen several different ways of doing this. But basically all I'm doing is taking just a handful and just dropping it on there, and that'll be one meal. Some of them are bigger than others, but that's alright. Kind of dropping them on there. They say you can do it this way and it'll be alright. We'll find out how this dehydrates. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on my 5th one in this one. Now the one thing when you're doing spaghetti that you have to be careful of is you don't want any of these stragglers sticking straight out. So I put on here now. See if this one was like out here like this. That will dry like that and it'll be brittle and break off. So you want to make sure that they they come into the nest, so to speak. I'm just dropping it on there and making sure all my ends are curled into it, or near enough curled into it. Making sure it's not too high, and putting them all together. Again, I rinsed it when I took it off in cold water. Cool it down, stop the cooking. Alright, I've got a little dab left over here, but I'm just going to leave that. It's not enough to worry about. And we'll get these put on the dehydrator and we'll see what it does. Alright, the spaghetti's done. It's been dehydrated. And now I'm going to package it up and leave it set out. It's going to make several packages because I made it into little individual serving nets. When I have to handle the dehydrated food, I always wear gloves. That keeps any moisture or anything from the hands getting onto the food. So here we have our little nest, and these are like individual servings. I'm going to package 2 of them per Ziploc. Now, when I cook my spaghetti, I break it in half to cook it because I'm not a spoon twirler. I don't eat my spaghetti long. I like to cut it up anyway, so I'm not real concerned about how this comes out. So I'm just going to gently put these in, 2 to a package, mainly because that stays on the Ziplocs. Alright, then I'm going to seal this up, and I get it sealed almost all the way. Then I have a straw. This happens to be a metal straw. It works best for me because it's more rigid. I put it right here in the corner and seal this up right to the straw. And I'm going to take some air out of it. Not a lot of air, but enough to make it where it's mostly out, and that way it seals better. Alright, I'm going to do the rest of these. I've already done the first one. You can see all these over. Wait a second. See all these over here. I've got all those bagged up already. Got 2 nests to a bag. Now there are other ways to do this, but this way tends to work out best that I could see. Dehydrating times, it varies. Now people will tell you different ways, times to dehydrate different things. And to be honest with you, you have to do what works for your dehydrator. Always make sure that it's good and dehydrated. You don't want to underdo it. You don't want to overdo it too much, but it's better to overdo it a little bit than underdo it, because that way you'll know that it's done. And I just put these little bits, when I have some little bits, I'll just put them down in the bag, because like I said, I don't care for it to be cut up, broken up, because I cut mine up anyway to eat it. I don't twirl it on a spoon. Some people like it long. I always break mine in half when I cook it. Some people cook it whole. That's okay. You can nest it up like this whole, same as you can any other way. So I'm going to go ahead and bag these up. Then this will be ready. I'll let it set for a couple of days. And when we come back, we're going to cook some of this pasta up and show you how it cooks up. Alright? Alright, our dehydrating pasta. Now I just want to mention something about this that I've, in the first I talked about reconstituting and everything. So we're going to do that right now. A couple things first. When I dehydrated these, I used my 2 different dehydrators. And, like everything, you have to understand the dehydrating times are not precise. They're based on the humidity in the air, the temperature that the room is, and your individual dehydrators. For instance, my two dehydrators, for the most part, were not exactly synchronized, so they didn't do it at the same time. On the Penne, which I dehydrated first, I've got it here, conditioning it, and when you condition it, all you do is you just kind of keep it out where you can see it, roll it around, where you can check it and make sure that there's no moisture in there and it's not sticking. I dehydrated that one, and the one dehydrated I had stacked pretty high. I think there was 6 trays. I don't remember, it's in the video before. But in the smaller one, the other one I think was just like 3 trays. But it only took like 3 hours for it to dehydrate. The other one took like 6 hours. So the number of trays that you have in your dehydrator, how much you have in your dehydrator, and the dehydrator itself, the humidity and everything will determine how long it takes. Now on the elbow macaroni, again, I've got it out where I'm conditioning it. I'm checking it and seeing make sure there's no moisture in it. That was a little different. That's pretty much the same time, and that dehydrator, it took about 5.5 hours to do the elbow macaroni. And then the spaghetti, which I made into little nests and plopped in there, so they're individual servings. I got 2 servings per bag here. I just slipped 2 servings in there, and I can slip them out one at a time however I need them. Those in the one dehydrator took 5.5 hours, and the other dehydrator took 7 hours. Now, clumped together like this, you have to be careful when you're dehydrating, and I should have showed you, but I didn't, so let me tell you about it here. First, as I said, when you do dehydrate, the end result is going to be stiff just like it was pre-cooked, and it breaks. Okay? So, but in the nest, what you're looking for when you dehydrate it, you let it set in there and dehydrate it. Look in the middle, especially because where it's thickest at, it's going to be white. Undehydrated spaghetti, when it's cooked, is white. As it dehydrates, it goes back to the yellow color that it was before. So look in the middle of it, and then halfway through or so, as the top was beginning to dehydrate good, and I could see a little white down in the middle, I could push down in there, I could feel it being soft. Then I flipped it over and set it over in the dehydrator, so that it dehydrated evenly. Now, what we're going to do now is I'm going to heat some water up to the microwave, and then I'm going to rehydrate these and let you know how long it takes. I've already done some of these because I've eaten some of it. And a lot of times on these they'll tell you it's real quick. Well, it's not as quick as what I thought it was. Alright? It doesn't tell you, it's not quite as quick in rehydrating as I thought it was. It is a lot less mess, it's a lot easier to do. When you're making something that you're going to put the spaghetti or the pasta in later, you can make up what you're making and then put the pasta in after it's hydrated, and it can be hydrating while you're doing the other things. I have a recipe called chicken spaghetti, in which you mix chicken and mushroom soup and some peppers and onions and pimentos and some chicken broth, and you mix all those together, and cheese, you mix cheese in there, and then you put the spaghetti in. After you get all that mixed up, heat it up a little bit, put the spaghetti in, and then heat it up in the oven for 45 minutes. It's real good, and I really like it. But you cook the spaghetti till just al dente before you put it in. Well, with this dehydrated spaghetti, I can rehydrate it till it's just al dente and then put it in. So, cooking the spaghetti to dehydrate and cooking the other pasta to dehydrate, I'm going to say you need to cook it till it's just done. Now, before I might have said something about al dente. I think I did my penne. I think I did that al dente. The macaroni and spaghetti, I did it where it was just done. So when it rehydrates, it's a whole lot better. because everything that I've read and researched when I did this said that it will cook when you're rehydrating. You put hot water on it, boiling water on it. Well, it does a little bit, but not enough if your al dente is not quite as done as what it should be. So my suggestion is to cook it till it's just done. Okay, don't overcook it, it'll be too soft, but till it's just done. And well, I guess you could overcook it and be soft and still dehydrate it, still be the same, but you know, just cook it till it's done and then dehydrate it. So now what we're going to do is rehydrate. I got some water in the microwave I'm heating up, and then we're going to put it on these and show you about how long it takes to rehydrate. Let me tell you, it takes longer to rehydrate than what the research that I saw said it would. Great for trail mix, for trails, for camping, for hiking and everything, because you can take your hot water in a thermos and add it to it and let it rehydrate before you eat. You can actually, if you have the right amount of water in the thermos and the right amount of pasta, you can just pour the pasta in the thermos, cap it, and let it rehydrate as you go. But it's a lot easier, takes a lot less water, so the cooking of it is easier. It's not necessarily so much quicker, but it is easier. All right, let's see how that goes. All right, now I have some penne in here, and I just put a little bit, and I've done this before, and it's very hard to measure this as far as the 1-to-1 ratio. So what I found is best is simply put it in your container, and then just cover it with hot water. You can use boiling water if you want to, but this is hot water, so just cover it with hot water. Now, the elbow macaroni, that's a little different. You can easily measure that. So I've measured, there's a 1/4 cup of elbow macaroni in there. So what I'm going to use is a 1/4 cup of hot water. And then finally the spaghetti, and it's in a nest, so I'm just going to put it in a container, and like the penne, I'm just going to cover it with hot water. So it takes a little bit more water this way, but I'm just going to cover it with hot water. Now, as these rehydrate, keep them kind of stirred up every once in a while so they don't stick together, because as they begin to rehydrate, then they become sticky again and will start sticking together. Now the spaghetti, as it starts to get a little rehydrated, it'll start getting softer and start breaking apart. So, and if you want the long strands, you have to be careful that you don't damage it. I personally don't care. I cut my spaghetti up anyway. I'm not a spoon twirler. No offense to the spoon twirlers. We'll let these rehydrate, and I'll keep it timed, and I'm going to stir them every once in a while, keep them stirred up. And when they become rehydrated, we'll be back. I'll let you know how long it took. Now, as you can see, the pasta does turn lighter as it absorbs the water. Now, the mac and cheese, as you can see, took most of the water, not all of it, but enough, and it took about 17 to 20 minutes. The penne is a little thicker pasta, so it took about 30 minutes to get to where it was done, and the spaghetti, because of the amount of it, it also took about 30 minutes to make sure that it was done. Now the process, of course, can be speeded up if you use actually boiling water. I just heated up the water, so it was just hot water, and wasn't quite boiling. But if you use boiling water, that'll speed it up. If you want to pop it and put the boiling water on it, stir it up, and as it gets along a little bit, pop it in the microwave. You can do that, and that will also speed up the process. But either way, there it is. Again, like I said, it's not as quick as what some of these that I've researched and when I looked into it and studied it said that it would be. But nevertheless, you have your spaghetti and your elbow macaroni and your penne. Now, I would not recommend the penne because it's a lot thicker pasta, and so it takes more on the rehydrating process. It's been 30 minutes. I don't think it's still quite where it ought to be, but then I didn't cook it all the way done because I followed what they said in the instructions that I researched. Said just cook it till it was just almost done, just a little bit al dente. Well, my recommendation would be, regardless of the pasta you do, cook it till it's done. Now, not too done, which I don't think would actually make a difference, but cook it till it's done. And when it's done to your liking, then of course you put it in the drainer and spray it with cold water, and that will stop the cooking process, so it'll be done. Now, from this point, I will drain the excess water off. And there's a nice little plate of spaghetti. Now, that's like a single serving if you're using it for an appetizer or something like that, which is how I geared these towards. But if you were wanting to make a meal out of it, then of course you'd take 2 or 3 of those nests and put them in a bowl and rehydrate them. Now, what I have is some Alfredo sauce. It's been in my freezer way too long. And so I'm just going to add my pasta to that, and I'll eat it. I'll do the same with the elbow macaroni. And then again right into my Alfredo sauce. And the penne, again, same thing. And right into my Alfredo sauce. Well, that's it for dehydrating pasta. We've done 3 different kind of pastas, and I showed you how to reconstitute them. Again, you have to, everything is different with everybody's equipment, so you have to do it the way that it works out for you best. But that's just kind of the guidelines. And I've got my pasta in a nice Alfredo sauce here. Can you see that? So I'm just gonna help myself. And we'll catch you next time. From my house to yours. God bless.